Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Scrap Mechanics. What can I say about this game? It's an interesting game. It's about building and it's about crafting things, and well, it's in early access right now and there's not a lot to it at the moment. I'm not sure exactly where this game is going, so this isn't your typical first impressions type video. This game basically has just a creative mode where you can build stuff. There is working multiplayer, and basically how you do it is you put a lift down to make a vehicle, and then you sort of put things on top of it, and you can attach wheels to it, and you can power those up using motors and things, but that's probably going to take some time, and I don't want to spend the whole video doing it. So here's something I made earlier. Some of you may recognize what this is. And yes, this is a city bus. It's a little bit high off the ground. After all, this is basically off-road. There aren't really paved roads down here, so I have actually lifted it up quite significantly. So much so that we can't actually get inside. We do have working headlamps, of course, and we're gonna take this bus out for a spin. Just a casual drive out in the countryside. And before we do that, I'm going to close the doors. So all of these are things that you can set up as well. Little controllers, little motors, and switches that you can see in the toolbar at the bottom there. And that's how we control everything. And we've got working steering there. That seems to be working just fine. Now we do have a little bit of a steep drop over here, so I don't really want to damage the bus too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift us up a little bit as we go down. Now we're using electric motors for this. You do have petrol engines as well, but I'm using the electric motors just for a little bit more control over the speed of the bus as we go. And you see the working hydraulics there. And of course, we want to pick up passengers. We do have the option of, well, sort of twerking there, huh? So, just remember to get the controls correct. We can actually tilt the bus to one side there to make it a little bit easier for people to get in or get out. So very much like an actual bus. Alright, let's take this bus for a little spin. Electric motors are a little bit quieter than the buses would usually be. After all, city buses do need to worry about their noise levels. It is a little bit loud if we go right next to the engine compartment there, but otherwise, fairly quiet compared to the petrol engines. Alright, I've got a little bit of road over here, so I'm going to take a little spin on it. So like I said, not particularly fast, but then buses don't tend to be particularly fast. It is, after all, in a bus's nature to be a little bit slow and behind schedule. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Now, of course, all the speeds of engines are fully adjustable, so we are able to control the speed as much as we like. Of course, accelerating does affect our steering very, very slightly there. I'm going to go up this little hill over here. A bit of a wide turning radius there. A little bit of knocking around in the back. I'm not too sure what that is. You can see a little mechanic is bouncing around inside there. A bit of a steep drop there, but I think we should be just fine. So, all in all, fairly smooth, fairly stable. But what if we wanted to go faster? Let's just open the door so I can get out. What if we wanted to go just a little bit faster? After all, this is my bus, and my bus isn't allowed to be late. So let's open the back of the bus here so we can get into the, and hopefully the stairs don't jam. Now that isn't supposed to happen, so we're going to fix that by simply going into here. Now what you're actually seeing here is an overlay of how everything is connected, from the steering all the way at the front there, all the way to the engines at the back, to the wheels, and even the hydraulics there. It looks very complicated, but it's actually fairly easy to put together. So what I'm going to do here is simply invert that and see where that goes. Now obviously that's not what we want to do. Let's just observe what is actually happening here. So I probably need that to rotate just a little bit more. Here, something did not save when I exited the game earlier. So, I'm not entirely sure which bearing that is. Looks like bearing number 2, possibly bearing number 1. It's probably number 2. Alright, we'll switch number 2 around. So we can simply set that to go all the way around. And let's try that and see what happens. And there we go. So something didn't save exactly correctly when I left the game earlier, and by right, that's the way it's supposed to come out. A little bit anticlimactic there, but yeah, here we go. So these are little controllers that we have here, and these are the electric engines. Now the petrol engines are just there because I needed to balance the weight out. The bus is actually a little bit imbalanced, and the physics simulation is fairly accurate. So since there's more wood on this side than there is on this side, the bus tends to tilt a little bit to the left, so by offsetting the engines to the right a little bit, we get a nice little balancing out over here. So we're going to turn the speed of the engines up just a little bit more, and give us that little bit more speed. Let's close that up. Nicely there. And off we go. And oh my, it's actually made it quite a bit more lively now. We are actually really moving now. And oh! Help. Alright, we've got ourselves back upright again. I'm going to be a little bit more controlled with that. Or not. So as you can see, balance is a very important thing in this game. You do need to be very aware of what your vehicle is like when you build it, and how to really manage it accordingly. So that kind of speed is a little bit too much for this bus to handle. So we're going to turn that down just a touch. And since we're going to be doing a little bit more off-roading, I've included a spare engine here. So how we actually connect these up, you got to find the node that is there. Obviously you don't have this many engines in one vehicle most of the time, but you can just connect it to a bearing, like so. And now that is actually connected, and we want to make sure that's rotating the correct direction. And then in order to have control over that, let's give that control to the steering wheel, like so. And there we have it. Now we have a 6-wheel drive bus. So hopefully that gives us a little bit more traction off-road, in theory. Now you might be wondering why there's a little gap over here. Well, the door splits there, and the bit of the wall was actually getting in the way, so I had to put that there instead. And it does actually help me get into the bus when the door's closed. I haven't actually figured out how to just let the doors open from the outside, but we'll get around to that. I believe there probably is a way. I might just move that switch somewhere else. But off we go. So now we have... Oh, I do believe I have set the engines up incorrectly, and you can see that the power to the front wheels isn't as high as the ones at the back. So, simple correction there. Let's open the doors again. And let's make some corrections. And that's what this game really is at the moment. It's strangely addictive as a result. All this tinkering and constant corrections of things to just get the perfect vehicle going. And as you can see there, yeah, the power is way too low, and let's make it match the others. You can see there, just one off from the top there. And while we're at it, I'm going to add a switch to the front so that we can open these doors and get in on our own. So let's get rid of that switch there and reconnect that switch. Now I think we can connect switches to other switches, but I probably don't want to do that yet. So there we go. Now the only thing about this is when that happens, it renumbers that. So that was switch number 4, I believe, before, and now that's switch number 5. So that has actually changed the order of things. As you can see, 4 now opens the back doors instead, so that's a little bit confusing. But we should be on our way now. And now we're really moving across the terrain there. And it does seem that the extra power going to the front has led to a significant amount of understeer. The main difference, of course, between the electric engines and the petrol engines is that the electric engines basically apply brakes immediately when you release the acceleration, whereas the petrol engines let you coast a little bit until you decide to slow down. There is actually no means of applying a proper braking system in the game yet, and that's something that I think eventually will be added. This is a very new early access game after all, but it's something that probably will be added later on. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I mean, I'm just a bus driver. I mean, look at this. He does seem to sort of stick his arm out of the window ever so slightly, like what those truckers are known for doing. Apologies if you are a trucker and don't actually do that. I guess it is a bit wrong of me to assume that truckers always stick their arms out windows, but who knows. Oh, we've almost lost it. Oh, and saving it there. Now this is extreme bus driving. Extreme bus driving. That should be a sport. Extreme bus driving. And we've rolled it. So as you can see, as I was saying, balance is especially important. So what we're going to do now is we're going to reset that back to the way it was before and get a move on. So that's going back down to about there, I believe it was. And this is being switched off. Right, with the front wheels now disconnected and returned back to steering, and everything's back as it should be. Nice, safe, and slow. Alright, well I'm going to leave that one here. Just a quick video of scrap mechanics and what you can sort of do with it at the moment. And I'm going to play around with this a little bit more, so if you have a question and that you'd like to see answered, do leave it down in the comments below. Or if you have anything that you'd like to see me build. I mean, this is just a sort of off-road city bus, but I'm sure we can get something a little bit more adventurous in the next episode. So if there is something you'd like to see me build, do leave it down in the comments, and I will attempt to build it. Who knows how successful I will be. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Panzer taking a look at scrap mechanics. It's now available on Steam Early Access. Go check it out if this is something that sort of interests you. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.